السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Welcome to the last episode of this short series of the call of Ibrahim alayhi salam with regards to Hajj and some of the rituals of Hajj, where we briefly going through the book of Al-Tahqiq wal-Idah by Sheikh Aziz bin Baz rahimahullah, and showing some of the etiquettes and the things to be observed. And the last part of the book, where we started last time with regards to the ziyarah, visiting the masjid of the Prophet ﷺ in Al-Madinah, and some of the etiquettes with regards to Al-Madinah. And continuing where we stopped last time, he mentioned here as something to be mentioned, worth mentioning, that the visiting the grave of the Prophet ﷺ is not an obligation, it's not a condition of Hajj. And as many people they think, it's recommended for those who have the means to do so. And of course the Sheikh rahimahullah, when he mentioned this, it does not mean to belittle such an act, because as we heard the rewards of it, but it's clearly to make things clear so that people do not understand the religion in the wrong way. If someone go for Hajj and come back without going to Al-Madinah, his Hajj is valid, is inshallah ta'ala accepted by Allah. And for those who come from far away from Al-Madinah, right, they should not go to the grave. Their intentions for going to Al-Madinah is not to visit the grave, but rather to visit the masjid, because that's what the Prophet ﷺ, he said clearly in the hadith, لا تشد الرحال إلا إلى ثلاثة مساجد, that it's not permissible to travel except for 3 masajid, and he called them masajid, the Masjid al-Haram in Mecca, and Masjidi هذا, the masjid of the Prophet ﷺ, and Masjid al-Aqsa. So if it was traveling to the grave was meant, the Prophet ﷺ would have called his ummah to do it, and the Prophet ﷺ would not deprive the ummah from something that is good for them. So when you're traveling, you're going to the masjid, and when you go to the masjid and you pray there and then you go visit the Prophet ﷺ, yes, this is how things should be done, in such a way, and not to take again the graveyard or the grave of the Prophet ﷺ as a place of festivity and the like of this. And this is how the matters of belief should be observed. And he mentioned that some of the hadith that people would narrate, they're either weak or fabricated when it comes to this subject, as one of which, Man hajja wa lam yazurni faqad jafani, whoever make hajj and did not visit me, he had jafani. The jafa is when someone has a cold shoulder, if it's correct to say that, or have harshness inside of him when he does not visit the Prophet ﷺ, or whoever visit me after I died, as if he visit me while I was alive, and whoever visit me and visit my father Ibrahim in 1 year, I would guarantee for him Jannah, and whoever visit my grave, my shafa'ah will be guaranteed for him. All of that has no authenticity to it whatsoever. And Ibn Hajar rahimahullah, in his book At-Talkhis, he made it very clear that it's all weak, there's nothing authentic in this subject whatsoever. And the same thing Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah rahimahullah, he said it's all fabricated. So that's sufficient for us. We worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with clear evidences, with what the companions radiallahu anhum were upon. And this is how we worship Allah, and it's not just desires or emotions, but we need to subject our emotions to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us. The last part is, or the last chapter is about the recommendation when a person is in Medina to visit Masjid Quba and Al-Baqi'. And Masjid of Quba is mentioned in the Quran, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala clearly stated, لَمَسْجِدٌ أُسِّسَ عَلَى التَّقْوَى مِنْ أَوَّلِ يَوْمٍ أَحَقُّ أَن تَقُومَ فِيهِ. The verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded the Prophet ﷺ to make salah in Masjid Quba. So it's recommended for people in Medina to visit Masjid Quba and to pray in it. And the Prophet ﷺ, as it's mentioned in Bukhari and Muslim, where Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhu, he said the Prophet ﷺ used to visit Masjid Quba rakiban wa mashiyan, sometimes riding, sometimes walking, and he would pray in it 2 rak'ah. And also another narration, whoever makes wudu, purify himself in his home, and if you are a visitor in your hotel, for example, and then to go to Masjid Quba, فَصَلَّ فِيهِ صَلَاةً, and he prays in it a salah, any salah, fard, nafla, and so on, كَانَ لَهُ كَأَجْرِ عُمْرَةٍ, he will be given the reward of a umrah by a very simple act. And it's recommended also to visit the graves of Al-Baqi', which is right outside the masjid of the Prophet ﷺ, and the graves of the martyrs of Uhud, and the grave of Hamza radiallahu anhu, the uncle of the Prophet ﷺ, because the Prophet ﷺ used to visit them and he would make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for them. And he said, زوروا القبور, visit the graves, فإنها تذكركم الآخرة, because indeed it reminds you of the hereafter. And the Prophet ﷺ used to teach the companions radiallahu anhum what to say when they visit the graves. Assalamu alaikum ahla diyar min al-mu'mineen, saying salam to them from the believers and the Muslims. Wa inna insha'Allahu bikum lahiqun, and we, by the will of Allah, will join you. This is how life is. So it reminds you of the outcome of one's life. And nas'alullah lana wa lakum al-afiyah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for you and for us al-afiyah, the strength. And this hadith is in Muslim and others. And many of these narrations, Assalamu alaikum ya ahl qubur, yaghfirullahu lana wa lakum antum salafuna wa nahnu bil athar, saying salam to them of the people of the grave. Allah would forgive, may Allah forgive you and us. You are the ones that surpassed us, you are before us, and we are following your footsteps. So as you see here that the hadith talks about visiting the graves for what reason? To remember the hereafter and to make goodness to those who are dead by making dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for them. And not from the objectives of visiting the graves is to make dua to the person that is deceased, or to make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for your own benefit in the graveyard, or to stay there, or to think that there's some blessings to achieve or to attain from there, or if someone's sick they can be cured. All of that is not permissible, and this has never been done by the Prophet ﷺ or the companions radiallahu anhum. So very clearly, when we visit the graves, any graves, whether it's the most righteous or anyone, for two reasons. One is to remind ourselves of the hereafter. The second thing is to make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the benefit, for the deceased to benefit from it. To make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for their forgiveness, for the elevation of their levels, and so on. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said, زوروا القبور ولا تقولوا هجرة. Visit the graves and do not say things that is not permissible, which is basically making dua to other than Allah, raising your voice, and these types of things. So these things are innovation in the deen, and some of these innovations can lead the person to shirk wal-'iyadhu billah, like asking other than Allah, or minor shirk or so. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from every evil. And when you see the entire trip and journey of Hajj, and that's also from the ilm and the knowledge of the Sheikh, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy on him. The Tawheed is mentioned, warning against the shirk. Look at the Hajj from the beginning to the end. It's all about the Tawheed and warnings against shirk. لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك إن الحمد والنعمة لك والملك لا شريك لك. The talbiyah, it's all about the Tawheed. And shirk, how many times it's mentioned? Distancing oneself, disloyaling oneself from associating partners with Allah. And all of the people of Hajj, they would say that. And then you would have someone else, or someone later would say, why shirk, shirk? Why are you talking about shirk, shirk? The talbiyah itself, when you are in state of al-ihram, you are saying the word shirk many times, that you're stating that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has no partners. The same thing, the best dua in the day of Arafah, as we heard. لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له له الملك وله الحمد يحيي ويميت وعلى كل شيء قدير. You're stating the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, no one is worthy of worship except Him. There's no partners for Him. He's the one that gives life and death, and He is the one that is able to do all things. This is the best thing to be said in the day of Arafah. Stating, declaring the words and the statement of the Tawheed, and distancing oneself from anything to do with associating partners with Allah. And the same thing when visiting Al-Madinah, and establishing the Tawheed, and knowing and putting things in the right perspective, and asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for all matters of goodness, and the purpose of visiting the graves, as we heard. All of these things are all in place. This deen is not contradicting, is not based on people's emotions, that the shaitan tampers with it. This deen is mateen, is well structured, based on the clear evidences in the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. We follow what the Prophet ﷺ commanded us to follow, and we abstain from what the Prophet ﷺ did not command us to follow. And this is how a Muslim protect his honor and dignity, and protect his religion, and to perfect one's life according to the way of the Prophet ﷺ. This is the end of the book, and as we heard, it went from the virtues or the obligation of making Hajj and Umrah and the importance of that, and to be hastened into fulfilling this great pillar of the deen of Islam and all of the different rulings. And after all of what is being mentioned, it's important and it's very important that we ask the people of knowledge. We learn, and this is, as we said, it's very brief. We need to ask. And no matter how much you learn about Hajj, once you go there, you would find yourself in need to ask the people of knowledge, those who you trust the knowledge and the religion, because it's not something that you practice on a daily basis. So all the time we learn the truth with the foundation of the religion very clear, Tawheed of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the oneness of worship of Allah, following the way of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. And when we learn the authentic knowledge, we still ask the people of knowledge. We should not introduce from our own selves matters of religion. This religion has to be taught. We have to learn it. And if we don't have the knowledge, then we ask the people of knowledge. And that's why it would have been easy to just talk about Hajj from our own like this. But why do we need to follow the books of the people of knowledge? To be attached to the way of the ulama, to follow the people of knowledge, those who we trust the knowledge and the religion, and to follow their way, which is a lineage that goes all the way to the Prophet ﷺ. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive our Sheikh and to have mercy upon him, and to forgive us all and to make us among those who are obedient to Allah, and to accept from those who made Hajj, and to make it easy for those who did not go for Hajj, to give them the reward as if they also established this pillar of Islam. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.